Hey there YouTube, KS Cuber here, and wow, it has been quite a while since I filmed my last video. It definitely was quite a challenge getting the whole camera set up. Had to try and find batteries for this camera, which actually only had the one in there, so that one's going to be cut short. Hopefully my other one has more battery than this one. But anyway, besides the point, back to another video today. We have an unboxing from DA Puzzles on Instagram. It's a really interesting mod, and without further ado, let's get right into it. Okay, and here is the puzzle. And first off, you're probably thinking to yourself, wow, that's a nice little cuboid. It's a 5x4x3, correct? Well, there's a reason I haven't turned it yet in the little intro sequences there. First of all, I guess we'll go over construction on this puzzle. This thing is really, really well constructed. I believe it's partially 3D printed and partially maybe hand modded and glued together there. I guess I'll go into that in more detail here in a minute. But first, let's figure out what's different with this from a normal 3x4x5 cuboid, which I actually don't have one of those either. And this is what makes this puzzle super crazy. Look at that. This thing just goes out of shape super easily. And man, this is going to be quite a crazy solve. And basically, let's make sure I get this back here in a minute. There we go. Don't want to go scrambling it quite yet. I'll do that here in a minute. But basically what this is called is a 3x4x5 Super I Cuboid. Which, if you don't know what an I Cuboid is, it's basically a smaller layer puzzle with glued on extensions that makes it look larger than it is. Might be a bit of a simplified, or at least not super good explanation. I actually have a bit of trouble wrapping my head around it as is, but from what I can tell, just looking at the mechanism and all that, this is actually based on a 4x4 mechanism, which to make a 5-layered cube would be quite challenging. So anyway, let's take a look at some turning on it first here. As you can see, it goes all out of shape. When you start turning here, it kind of turns around an axis point. I'll show you the centers here in a minute, and those are pretty crazy as well. But let's just do a simple 3x3 checkerboard. And I have to say that's probably one of the only patterns on this cube that actually works out pretty well and looks fairly good, at least that I know of. As you can see, that starts to show you kind of the oddballness of this puzzle. If you've seen anything like the 4x4 mirror I cuboid, which is actually made out of 3x3 and then extended to make it look like a 4x4 mirror blocks cube, fairly old puzzle. I actually don't have one to show. But this sort of reminds me of that. How these two pieces here are kind of bandaged together, and obviously those won't move once it's turned like this, as opposed to all these, which, I mean, those all seem pretty normal. And then, of course, right here, you can kind of see how this set here is fused together. So I don't know, let's take it out of this pattern here. Oh, there goes a cap, and I will have to glue down those caps he mentioned, which is not a big deal, and it allows me to tension it here. I'll also show you some mechanism shots in a minute, but let's just quickly go through the construction of this puzzle, and it's very, very good. Like I said, kind of combination between hand modding and 3D printing. There's actually two center caps here that are not 3D printed, which let's see if I can pull one of those out right now. To zoom in here in a minute, but as you can see, that just seems to be out of a Shengshao 5x5 or similar. I'm actually not quite sure. But then the other center caps on some of the other pieces, like that one right there, are 3D printed, which I'll show you that here in a minute also. One other thing that unfortunately happened right after I got the puzzle and started to try and do some turns on it, this piece right here kind of came detached and some of the 3D printed plastic kind of flaked off of it. I re-super glued it and hopefully it won't give me more problems, but definitely not looking quite its best. If you notice how the seam there isn't perfect versus the seams here. Other than that little piece detachment, which isn't really a big deal, this puzzle seems very, very well made, and I'm very impressed with the weight and feel of this one in general. Like I said, I'm really actually interested on what here is 3D printed and what isn't, which I think will become a little bit more apparent as we go through the mechanism. Zoom back out there. But also one thing I noticed is some black kind of, I don't know, paint maybe coming off of my hands there. I'm not sure exactly if it's painted black, partially Sharpie, or maybe sprayed with WD-40 or similar. I don't know enough about these Mayan techniques. So I guess basically what this video is going to be is kind of just an overview on this puzzle, since I understand it probably about as much as the viewers watching this. I definitely have my own questions about how it all works, and it'll be really interesting to scramble this up and attempt to solve it, which I will do here in a little bit. If I zoom in here a little bit, here is that center cap that popped off, and as you can see, this is a 3D printed center cap compared to the other ones there. I may or may not glue those down after I finish tensioning and getting this puzzle set up like I like it. But actually out of the box, the tensions are really, really good. I have to say they're a little bit on the loose side. Usually what I'd want on a cuboid like this. And actually it came really, really loose out of the box and I had to tighten it right away. As you can see on that side, it's still pretty loose. So I might have to play around with those a little bit and figure out if I can get those set before I go into solving this one extensively. I guess for turning quality, this is definitely lubed a little bit, and it definitely is a little bit on the gummy side compared to some other 3D printed puzzles that I've had before. And it actually has a very, very similar feel because a lot of the pieces, internal pieces at least, are actually original Shengshao, which is actually really cool. But if I had to say, I'd say that turns better than that. It comes like green cap popping out again. Really doesn't give you any of that 3D printed swoosh that you get with 3D printed puzzles in general, or at least unpainted 3D printed puzzles, which this is actually a painted one, so that makes sense. But let's bring up the microphone here and just show you the sound there. And there you go. So anyway, I guess the one last thing to do before I scramble it up is going to be to take a look at the mechanism. So let's see if I can carefully take a piece out. And if I can't, I don't want to break anything on this one, I'll loosen it up a little bit and pull some out that way. Okay, and there you go. I pulled out one of the kind of edge pieces here. It's definitely pretty lubey, straight out here. And as you can see, this would be some of the hand modding and where that's coming into play. That's super glued together right there. And then let me get a light here to shine in there. We try to make that a little bit more apparent. It's not going to be super easy to catch it on camera, but as you can see, there are some of the internals of the 4x4 mechanism. Definitely going to try and not disassemble this way too far because I don't want to have to deal with all the internal pieces on the 4x4 mechanism. But as you can see, it is indeed based on 4x4. And there you go, I definitely should be going into these videos with a little bit more knowledge. I just affirmed that it's a 4x4 mechanism, and actually now that I look at it, I'm pretty sure that's actually 5x5. So, kind of interesting there. Not sure why I thought that was a 4x4 mechanism, but as you can see on that piece right there, even though it is a hand mod deal, that is really, really well done there. Not filled in or anything, but the glue job is done very, very well and makes a smooth fit of very nicely applied stickers. There actually aren't really a lot of different signs that this actually has 3D printed parts on it. As you can see right there, that could be a small bit of the 3D printed plastic peeking through, but all in all, it seems very well hidden to somebody who doesn't know exactly what's going on here. Now that I know it's a 5x5 mechanism, I actually have a little bit less reservations about breaking it down further. So let's take one quick look at the corner piece right here, which as you can see is a standard corner glued to that centerpiece there, and that centerpiece there, I believe. That's a really crazy glue job right there. Bunch of pieces nearly seamlessly made into one. One thing I actually just noticed, which is actually pretty obvious to the outside viewer, is that this puzzle is also pillowed, which is a very interesting thing to do there. I have a lot of pillowed puzzles in my collection, and this one is definitely one of the cooler ones there. More almost like a barrel, how it's kind of bowed on the outsides and flat on the top and bottom. Okay, well, let's throw this thing back together. I'll show a couple more turns, and then I might attempt to solve it. Okay, so I guess one last thing, once I have you out here at this perspective, let's try and find all the center caps on this cube. Had a little bit of trouble with this last time, but I think it should be easy with just a little bit of picking around here. Gotta be careful not to break off any pieces that obviously are not the center cap. Okay, and there we go. With all the center caps removed, you can kind of see where all the centers are located. They're kind of off-center, and actually taking these all out, it definitely looks a little bit less confusing than when I first looked at it. As you can see, it's just kind of in the same spot on each side. Makes pretty good sense. But then, of course, you kind of observe here, this one seems a lot closer to the surface than, say, this one on the other side, which is very deeply recessed in there. Can also be seen with the centerpiece that came out of there. So that definitely hints to its kind of odd nature as an iCuboid. So I guess to end off this video, I'm going to do a scramble on this one. I will be possibly doing a second part on trying to solve it, but I'll probably just go on my own time and try and figure it out here for a little bit before I try and do that on camera, since I really don't even know how I'm going to start tackling this puzzle. So I guess let me put the center caps back on and let's give it a good scramble. Okay, there you go, back together, and let's start with some 180 turns, as usually that's the way you'd start on a cuboid. But then you run into that, so I'm pretty sure I'll do 2 180 turns on that, and I'll start trying to do some 180 turns on that. And now those two are separated. Man, this is where this really gets me with the iCuboid. I have some like the Meffert's Pocket Cube and some of the Whittington ones, some of the lower order ones. They always really confuse me how to scramble them properly. I'm sure there's some sort of etiquette out there, but man, I can never figure that out exactly. So, I don't know. I guess let's give it a try here and see how far I can get. Actually pretty surprised so far. This is actually scrambling up pretty well. I'm not getting a lot of bandaging, at least in the standard 3x3 moves. It's once I try to move out into any of the other ones that use the extended range all the way up to 5x5, where I encounter some problems. But just normal 3x3 moves right around the axis of the core, really no problem at all. I'm not even getting a significant amount of bandaging. But obviously you can't move something like this corner there. Full scramble on the 5x4x3 Super iCuboid. And like I said, actually halfway through the scramble there, my battery's about out, so that's why I had to cut it short and just finish the scramble off camera. This actually scrambles a lot easier than you'd think. Basically just doing 3x3 moves like this will eventually kind of split up most of the pieces. So definitely different from the Meffert's Pocket Cube in that regard. It's not quite as bandaged, and I actually have a feeling this is going to be a little bit, I don't know what I'd say, more intuitive solve maybe in that cube. That cube really gave me a lot of issues. And of course it has the center caps popping out there, but I probably will glue those in eventually. Anyway, that's about it for this video today. Like I said, I will be getting that solved, and that'll be really interesting to see how that solve works out. If you want to follow my solving process, or at least when I finally get solved, I will post on my Instagram at @ks_cuber. I'm pretty active on there, and I definitely will be trying to be more active on YouTube in the future. I still have this pretty huge pile of different things to unbox, which I'm pretty positive the way I'm going to have to do those, except for a few packages, is just going to be a big bulk unboxing. We're actually moving here pretty soon into a bigger house, a possibly smaller room. So these cubes are going to go into storage somewhat, but I will be able to find a lot of places around the house to film. So, shouldn't be a big deal for the videos. Definitely will be making some more in the future. Like I said, the unboxing videos. And then after that, I guess we'll have to see. Trying to get this channel back active again, which I guess would probably be a good idea. Anyway, off on a tangent. Thank you so much to DA Puzzles for making and sending me this puzzle. Based in the UK, and he actually is really known on Instagram for the 7x7 Ghost Cube, so make sure to go check him out there. I'll put a little @ symbol right there. A very talented puzzle modder, and makes some really crazy stuff, as you can see by this mod. And anyway, I guess that's going to be about it for this video for today. You don't want to make it too crazy long, so I guess that's about it. Chaos Cuber out. Goodbye.